Welcome back to the Belonging Place podcast, where we talk about things like loneliness, addiction, other things, and how belonging and connection are anecdotes to that. And I'm excited to welcome my good friend,
She was rehearsing that for a while.
Charan.
Yes.
Hi, Charan.
Hey, Kylie, how's it going?
Good. Okay, so we're going to start out just by chance. There might be someone who doesn't know you on this podcast. It's probably not
Did you
true.
say chants? Are we gonna start chanting? Is that what you said?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I was like, hey, I feel like I already belong.
In case there's somebody you already belong because we're gonna chat.
Yeah.
In case people don't know you, I think most people know you, but
That's a lie.
in case people don't know you, will you just introduce yourself, however you would like to introduce yourself? Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Charan Prabhakar. Kylie, you and I have been friends for a hot minute.
Yeah.
We've even decided that how long this minute has been was I actually had black hair when you knew me, and now I do not have black hair. So that's a season of life. That's a decade. I don't even know what that is. No, but
we decided you look very distinguished.
Very, very distinguished.
Salt and pepper.
Listen, I can play many doctor roles with this distinguished look. But yes, so I'm Charan Prabhakar. I am an actor by profession. Was born in India, moved to the U.S. when I was, I'm trying to think, 6.5 years old.
Okay.
And I moved here in 1987 to Provo, Utah, of all places, from India, which is it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different when you look outside and you see Indians your whole life growing up, and then you look outside and you see not Indians at all. Very different. Very, very different.
Like, none. Did you have anybody in grade school?
No. Well, I actually had some Indian friends. We lived in a place called Wymount Terrace in Provo, Utah, and I went to an elementary called Wasatch. And it's actually kind of funny because I remember my first day of school. Okay. In the U.S. I walked in and I had like the sweater on and everything. I didn't speak any English at all. Like it was like kind of brutal. And I walked in and Mrs. Walker, she's like, this is our new student Charan. And I like looked at everyone and they had like flying saucer eyes, like looking at me because they have never seen an Indian boy before. And I've never seen white people before. Like this is wild, right? And
maybe not even a person of color, let alone Indian. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to remember, but like my school in India, all boys school, and it was like a private school. We all wore uniforms, so everyone wore the same thing, all that stuff. Here, you can wear whatever you want. You know, there's like boys and girls, and everyone had blonde hair and blue eyes, and I thought they were aliens. They thought I was probably an alien, you know. And I remember like sitting down in this like little kind of like, I don't know, like the desks were all like kind of paired together, right?
Okay.
So I was sitting down.
In like a little quad.
Yeah, in a little quad. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So I was sitting down, and everyone was just like, "Do we talk to him? What do we say to him? How do we help him? You know?" And there's this kid who was like sitting across from me. His name is Dale Richards. Okay.
You have a great memory.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because like I remember Dale Richards was sitting right next to me, and he was just like so friendly, was so sweet, like just wanted me to feel like I belonged. So I was there, and then the bell rang, and everyone like ran up to like leave, and I'm like, "What's going on? What's happening?" And they're like, "Charan, are you coming?" And I'm like, "Where?" And then he's like, "Recess." I'm like, "What is recess?"
Wait, you didn't have recess?
No, we did not have recess.
Wow.
So I went outside.
Best time of the day.
And then they like the kids showed me around. Like I was running to like these like different things, and they were like, and it was weird as I was running to like these like little playground type things, like spinning whatever. There was like a whole like group of students on my left side and a whole group of students on my right side. I was a part of a flying V. I didn't even realize I was a center point of a flying V. Yeah, Mighty Ducks, you know. But it was amazing. I felt so good. And the reason why I bring that whole thing with Dale Richards up is because I was actually connecting with an artist named Kirk Richards. Okay. And he and I were having a conversation. And every time I like talking to him, I'm like, man, he looked really familiar. And then I'm like, Kirk, do you happen to have a brother named Dale? And he's like, yeah, he's my younger brother. I'm like, shut your face. And so I told him this whole story. But the funny thing about the story, this was first grade, right? Years later, I am in college at BYU, and I'm at like this girl's birthday party. and she's asking my name. I say Charan,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I hear a guy go, Charan, and I look and it's Dale.
No.
Dale Richards. And I'm like, Dale? What? And he like looks at me. He's like, dude, you speak English now. And I'm like, I do. And I also know what recess is. Let's go play. Anyway, it was a good time. Isn't that so funny?
That's a great story.
Yeah, it was fun. So, but yeah, so I grew up in Provo, Utah, and I got into acting almost as like, well, I don't know what else I'm gonna do, like it was more of I wanted to do something that was like really fun for me while I was trying to figure out what my career was gonna be, right? So I'm in school. My dad wanted me to be a doctor. I would pass out of blood, so I'm like, that's not gonna happen. But I was trying to do different things, and nothing excited me, and everything felt like I was like dead inside.
It's like, in the meantime, I'm gonna do this.
In the meantime, I'm going to try and just do acting because it's fun.
And comes natural too.
And it comes natural, right? And the next thing I know, it's like, oh, what the heck? I'm getting a part. Oh, what the heck? Like, I got another part. And then the next thing I know, I'm booking movies, feature films. I moved to LA. And it's weird to think that I make an actual living as an actor, but I do. And so now I'm on a show on BYU TV called Random Acts.
Love the show.
And yeah, I'm excited about it. It's coming. My season, like I just barely joined, but it's coming out this season. So
okay.
So yeah,
we have a common friend, Will, who's been in that. Yeah.
Yes. And funny thing about Will, because he's got salt and pepper hair, they're like, you have to dye your hair black to be on the show. I'm like, what?
So you do?
I do. Every episode, they spray my hair black. So and I'm like, guys, I really think even though Will and I have salt and pepper hair, people will be able to tell us apart. I think that they can.
They can, yeah.
But they're like, no, we need you to
I'm stoked to have you both on the show. Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah, Will and I have only done one episode together.
Okay.
But yeah,
there's
it's
a cast
awesome.
of like five or six? Five?
Yeah. Well, there's 4 of like big time main
Okay.
people hosts. And then me and this other girl who I haven't worked with on the show, we got on for this season to be guest hosts.
Oh, okay.
But then they said, no, you're not a guest host, you're a main host. And I'm like, oh, because this year particularly, I've been on a lot.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, well, I guess they are using me. So
yeah,
we'll see.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
it's super fun. Yeah, thank you.
It's nice, I imagine, to have a regular gig.
Oh, man, it's so nice. It is so nice to not be jobless all the time.
Okay, Charan, I'm going to go back when I asked you to tell us who you are.
How far back should we start the intro again? Let's start the intro again. Go ahead.
Welcome.
Yeah.
If you could strip down what you do, maybe even you're a producer. I consider you a person who's a producer. You produce things.
I do.
Right? You create things. If you could take away that and I said, hey, Charan, introduce yourself. Tell me who you are. And you couldn't say those things. We're going back.
So not actor, not a producer.
No.
Like, who am I as a person?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say I am someone who, for the most part of his life, has felt tons and tons and tons of insecurity.
Okay.
And a lot of feelings of inadequacy because of maybe my surroundings. I grew up in a place where I definitely stood out, right? And I didn't want to stand out. And so I would find like the walls in my high school because they were brown. And I'm like, let me hide by these walls and kind of slowly walk by. But I didn't want to be that person, right?
You didn't want to be the person
that was so shy. No, I did not. And yet I was, because I just felt so insecure.
And so exposed.
And
like
so
you
exposed.
Just, no matter what you do, you just stand out, right?
Just stood out, right? And then I went from that to being an extremely outgoing and joyful and happy person that now it's weird, but I have insomnia from too much joy. I know that sounds weird, but sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to sleep. I got too much joy. I got too much joy in me. What do I do? What do I do with this joy?
Do you know what the irony is? Right before we started this podcast, my producer, Tommy, I'm giving Tommy a shout out, literally said, I think I have 2 hours of sleep, but I think I'm surviving out of joy.
Excellent, Tommy.
He literally said that right
Excellent. Yes.
So I need the actual sleep, but I'm glad that you
I don't.
have joy insomnia.
Just have joy-somnia.
Can we go back?
Yes.
To the switch?
Yes.
Like my next question is this. What happened?
So
The boy that's like
the
inching
boy that,
along the wall, that's
yes,
like, I
yeah,
don't want to,
yeah,
to the, to who we know, basically now, to who
mm-hmm,
I know, to who everybody loves, just like this very outgoing,
yeah,
seemingly confident. I'm not saying you always are, but like
mm-hmm,
seemingly like knows who you are and feels secure on your feet and grounded.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What happened? Where did the shift
So
come?
it was an interesting thing because even my parents wonder this. They're like, "What is going on?" You know, and even if you look at pictures of me, like my body language when I was a kid,
I can imagine.
like look down, don't look up, like look away, you know, like don't draw more attention to yourself. Even though I didn't like that, I didn't like that.
Because not only did you have the what you look like, but what you sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want people to know me or see me, but I wanted to have friends, and I wanted to not be shy.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to get out of it. Like I felt like I was in a prison, you know.
Interesting.
And I remember, um, and we'll dive back into this as well. But I remember growing up. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old,
Mm.
and during that time, I felt like nothing was stable.
Mm.
Right? Nothing was
That's so
stable.
much change, right?
Tons of change. And the thing was, like, the way my parents divorced as well was weird because my parents were arranged in marriage. They only knew each other for like an hour before they got married. So there was no real like kind of romantic or whatever type of love in the household. We didn't grow up like that. I still have yet to hug my dad. I mean, we just like that's the kind of relationship I grew up in, right? And so growing up and then like having that divorce happen, they lived for 6 months in the house after this initial fight, but they never spoke to each other. So if they wanted to speak, they would speak through me, and I'm the oldest, and so I was like kind of ping ponging back and forth and trying to make sure what to do and what to say, right? And so I never felt comfortable in my skin. Like I didn't know where to go, right? I felt the most comfortable when I was by myself.
Mm.
When I was by myself, when no one else was around, I was like, okay, I can be me and no one is going to judge me.
I don't have a
I don't have
role.
a role I gotta play. I don't have to do anything else. I can just be me. And usually when I was just being me, I'd watch Saved by the Bell. I was like, this is amazing. No. But and
Zach and Kelly.
Zach and
all
Kelly,
the
man.
day.
I mean, there's something to be said about Screech and Lisa as well.
Okay,
All right,
fine.
something to be said about Screech and Lisa.
All
you
of
know,
them.
all of them. No, but actually in high school, because of the divorce, like we moved around a ton,
Okay.
and so every couple years, I felt like some big change would happen. So nothing felt the same. But high school, I had 4 years of kind of consistency in terms of like I'm going to go to this high school and only this high school. And I kept thinking, I want to be popular. I want to make friends. I want to like.
Is this Provo High
This
Bulldogs?
is Tim Few.
Tim Few. So,
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go back from the beginning. Welcome to the Belonging Play podcast. I'm just kidding. No, it was
Tim Few. What?
yeah,
I don't know what Tim Few's.
the Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds. That's what I meant. Tim Few Thunderbirds.
The T-Birds. Go
Okay.
T-Birds. And I wanted to be popular. I remember having that thought, but I also felt so shy still, and I was trying to break out of this. And I'm like, how do I make friends? What do I do? And I was like always kind of overperforming. And this is when I first started taking drama. And when I started taking drama, like people actually laughed at some of the things I was doing. And I'm like, what? Like,
I'm funny.
Am I funny? And I was like discovering, oh, people think I'm kind of funny. And so those things helped. But I also noticed that there were a lot of cliques in my high school. And the popular kids were the ones that were like kind of mean and kind of like rude to other people. And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. That doesn't feel good to me. So by my senior year, I said, you know what? I didn't want to be popular. I just want to be nice to people. And so I just became nice to people. And that was like a big start of like gaining confidence. I started being nice to people, and then I started noticing people were nice back to me. And so I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I started gaining a little bit more confidence. But truly, what got me confidence, and I'm bringing faith into this because like I don't know any other way to do it, is Jesus Christ. That is the like I can't even tell you like how big of a switch that was, because even after high school, even after I finished and everything, I did feel like I had made a lot of good friends and I was like gaining confidence, but we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I had like a really, really, really rough night when I was 17 years old. It was after high school. And, you know, it was around a girl and she wasn't into me. And I remember looking at
Come
myself.
now.
I know. It's a shock to the system. But I remember like looking at myself in the mirror and I just hated myself. Like I just couldn't see anything
I
about
don't
me
think
that I
that's
valued.
relatable to any 17-year-old.
No, it's weird. This is so bizarre, you know?
Who
I
did
know,
like
who-
themselves
yeah,
at 17?
I
But
know. But I felt like so empty inside. And I thought if I had just hung out enough with enough friends and like gone out enough and like not experienced any level of FOMO, I would feel happy.
some external
Some external thing,
would
right?
help you
Feel fulfilled
good
on the
or
inside
look good
or something.
yeah.
And yet, just this one night hanging out and with this girl next to me, and I knew she wasn't like, we just weren't connecting like that. I suddenly felt empty and just felt lonely. And at the time, and I've always been a spiritual person, but I didn't like really like in India, we have like a ton of different gods we pray to and have like different prayers that we say for different gods. Even though I didn't know what they meant, I was just told, say these things and they'll help you out. But I remember this particular night, I went into my room and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. I just have to know that there is a God. Like I have to know that. I have to know that that really does exist. And I wanted to believe. Now, I'm skipping around a little bit, but like previously that year, I found earlier in the year, a friend of mine I found out had died. And so that like had really like got me on this thought of like, is there more than just this, right? So I knew I had to like find out if there was a God. And so I knelt down to say a prayer. And I didn't even know how to say a prayer. I'm like, this feels so weird. I'm confused, and I remember saying like, okay, God, I don't know if you exist, but if you do exist, and if you can lead me to happiness, I will follow you. And that was it.
That was it.
I didn't know what else to say, you know?
Had you prayed before?
Not really. I mean, I kind of did a little bit. I mean, I did in my Indian way, right? But
so did your family bring a religion with you to
Hinduism.
and you practiced that?
I mean, kind of. We didn't really practice a ton because we're here in the States, but like there were different things that like there were certain Hindu temples we would occasionally go to. But we didn't really grow up like an overly practicing spiritual family. We did have like a little bit of a shrine, like an altar of like in different Indian gods that I'd go sit at and pray occasionally. And then I'd go years without even doing any of that stuff. So it was always hit or miss.
And then I kind of have a religion question leading up to this. So you ended up plopping yourself, your family, into very high Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints territory.
Yes, massively.
At the time called Mormons, right?
Yeah.
And I guess still by some.
Yeah.
And so, but you weren't Mormon.
Not LDS.
And were people trying to get you to be Mormon at this point, or were they kind of just letting you do your thing?
I honestly, it was funny because most people in my high school just assumed I was. So they
was wondering about this because you're just nice and kind and shiny.
They didn't say anything, you know. And I had no like. But the truth was, my dad did not want me to be.
Okay.
Like he did not want me to have any sort of religious affiliation or anything like that, and so I didn't.
So at 17, you hadn't really prayed before. You weren't Christian by nature of any baptism or any kind of anything.
No.
But you were like, I need to know.
I need to know, and I wanted to believe that it was.
That's powerful.
And I wanted to believe in Jesus. You know, I wanted to there was something I felt, and it was interesting because, and we can talk about this another time if you want, but like that led to a whole series of like events that suddenly took place in my life where I would was invited to a church. And I would go, and even though I didn't know what was being said, I would feel the Spirit, like is what we know as a spirit, and it would just fill me with happiness. And I'm like, "What in the crap is this? Yeah, this feels good." And after a series of a lot of those events and a series of insane miracles, I was like, "Okay, I know that Jesus is real. Like I know because of how I feel inside about myself internally. And I think that's like the biggest key because there was a very direct correlation between getting to know him and getting to know how I feel about myself. Like the way I felt about myself shifted massively. And so, You
What
know,
do you call that? Do you have a name or
the
a
name
thing for like,
for the
I
shift.
call it to be known,
Yeah.
like to be known,
Okay.
but do you have,
I
what
don't know.
would you call that?
Honestly, like to feel like for the first time in my life, like I truly belonged. That's what that
Look
felt
at
like.
that.
Full circle. No, full circle.
No,
Like
that
like
was
this
actually
table.
beautiful.
But
Like
it did.
an actual,
It did. I mean, it was interesting because, you know, uh, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints go on missions,
mhm.
and the reason why I joined is because I wanted to go on a mission.
You just
I because the thing was,
were excited, or you wanted to
because
travel.
I wanted to travel. I wanted to get away from my family. No. I wanted to go because I knew instantly how happy I was. And I suddenly felt a lot of pain that other people weren't feeling. And I'm like, I know other people were feeling the same emptiness I was. And I just felt this compelling need to share that with everyone. Now, it's interesting because, and I should share this, my testimony and my love was not for the church. It wasn't for the organization. It wasn't that. It was for Jesus. Like
Yeah.
that connection changed me on the inside, right? And so, because I still I still try to figure out like where my relationship is with the actual church,
The culture.
but with the culture, because it's different everywhere I go. I feel like it feels different. Like I've gone to church in India, very different than when I go to church in Utah, which is very different than when I go to church in New Zealand or Australia or
like
California
Africa.
or anywhere
Yeah.
else, you know? So I don't know where my relationship is with the church. And it's weird because, and this is just my own thing, I know what it feels like to be home and how it feels like to belong. And I never fully felt that within the church, but I feel that 1,000,000,000% within Jesus.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so for me, I have to very clearly say, like, that is
That's
that
your
connection.
belonging. Yeah.
That's my belonging.
It's interesting that you say that because I had a transformative experience when I was 19. My little brother drowned, my 15-year-old brother. And I had wanted to go on a mission, an LDS mission, since I was about 10. My aunt had come home from the Philippines, and I felt really strongly like I should serve. But what compelled me, like you were saying, when I wanted to serve my mission, was I wanted to help people understand that death wasn't the final finality, right? Yeah. Like I felt very compelled, like you felt, compared to help people feel connected to Jesus. I felt the same. Like that, like there is just this idea that babies aren't born in sin, and that when people die, like there is this other bigger plan, right? I felt like it wasn't really about the church either. It wasn't really about any of the other stuff, but it was really about this, like, and you can be saved. Grace, right? Yes. Like the idea of grace was so important for me. Yeah. To be able to go share. Yeah.
I remember, and I won't go into too much detail because it is a bit of a spiritual experience, but you know, when you go on a mission, you go to a place called the Missionary Training Center, right, to get trained.
Did you go to Provo?
I went to Provo, right, and
the MTC.
The MTC, man, where all the poor fish are dead, you know, because it's the MTC.
Got it.
Thank you.
But I'm changed.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone, for that. Listen, you're gonna hear this podcast, and you're gonna be like, "Oh man, please fast forward this guy immediately." No, but I went there, and there was this quote that we would say by one of our leaders. He would have this quote saying, like, "I am called of God, my authority is above that of the kings of the earth," and he'd say all these things. And I remember thinking, like, I know the church sent me a letter saying, "Go on a mission."
Yeah.
How do I translate that in my mind to "I am called of God"? Like that's a very different thing. You know? Like I don't know if I've been called of God. I know the church says that.
Yeah.
Right. But then I had an experience, a dream, in the which I connected with Jesus.
Yeah.
And he literally asked me to go. And like the way he asked me was so personal and so loving and so like gentle and friendly and familiar that when I got up, I was like, oh my gosh, I am called of God. And whenever I thought about that experience on the mission, like every pain, every worry, every whatever disappeared.
I love that.
But when I thought about like church and like, oh, that's like that wouldn't go away. It was like, oh, like that's just like part of the system. But when I thought about that dream in particular,
that was your anchor.
It was my anchor. I remember one particular day I was having such a hard day. I wanted to go and teach, but I just didn't have anything in me to go and teach. And I'm like, why am I here? And I was like thinking, like, am I here because of the church or because of this or that? And then I thought about that dream. And when I thought about just that dream and me talking to Jesus, I was
Like
like,
the invitation
the
from him,
invitation
right?
from him. It was like, boom, like a wash of light. And like every heaviness, every sorrow, all that stuff went away. So, we talk about belonging. We talk about home. We talk about what it means to like feel safe, to feel connected. Well, he is that root.
Mm.
Like he is the source of all of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, amen, right? For me, that he's the key
Yeah.
because I've had too many things in my life that have been like a roller coaster, that have been like I'm living on a weird landscape that I don't recognize anymore, right? It's like volcanoes have erupted or earthquakes have erupted, like just like metaphorically, right? Like different like family doing chaotic things or crazy things. I've seen and experienced chaos all around me. But when I'm with him, there is this feeling of absolute home and familiarity and friendship. Like that's another thing is like I we can say words like, oh, he's my savior, he's this, he's that, but he's also like my buddy. And that's how I feel. And so when I
And
connect
that's
like
how
that,
you talk about him.
he is
Like
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
one of the things we often do when we're together is meditate, right?
Yes.
Which I love, which I
Yeah.
want to talk to you a little bit more about that. But when I come to meditate, you're
Yeah.
always telling me a story about your relationship with Christ. It's one of my favorite things about showing up at your door is that
yeah.
you're going to talk to me about some dream you had, some experience you had, some feeling you had about, and it's like you're saying, hey, the other day I was talking to our friend Jocelyn.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that common to you.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that that's unique?
So it's weird because I didn't until I started talking to other people about it. And they're like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean? What am I talking about? What are you talking about?
I think even people that would
Because
consider themselves very spiritual people don't have that close of a relationship with
Yeah.
Christ. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because yeah, I've like as the years have gone on, like it's become even more real. Like, and I didn't think that it was possible, but it's become even more rich, even more real. And it's interesting because like when I hear his voice and everything, like it's always like filled with so much laughter and so much like hope,
Which is your love language,
which is my love
right?
language,
Yeah, I
right?
love
And like
that.
and so I don't know if there's ever been a time where like we've talked and like or God's talked to me and or prayers have been answered that haven't involved high levels of comedy. Like there's always like this level of hilarity and laughter and joy and
Which I imagine feels like home.
it's
Like
home.
you said, yeah.
It's complete home. It feels so safe and it feels so non-judgmental. So that's the thing. Sometimes I go to church and I hear different leaders speak about Jesus, and I'm like, oh man, they don't know Jesus.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's the feeling I get. Like it's like a very clear feeling like they don't know him. They don't know him. And it makes me very sad. Here's the problem I think I see with the church, which is not just, when I say the church, I mean like all churches, okay? Is people worship an idea of Jesus. They don't know him. They worship an idea. Okay, so like I talk about this all the time. When I've said, hey, imagine you have a picture of your best friend. It's an amazing picture of your best friend, and you show this picture to other people, and they're like, wow, what an amazing picture of your best friend. Can I take a look at it? And you're showing this, and all of a sudden one day you get a tap on the shoulder, and you look, and it's your best friend. He's like, hey, buddy, listen. I love that you love that picture. It is a good picture. But you've been so obsessed with that picture that we actually haven't hung out in a while.
Yeah.
And I feel that a lot. It's like we're so like attached to an idea of
or a
Jesus.
certain way of teaching.
Certain way of
One of the
teaching,
things that
yeah.
I think has really shaken this up, and again, this isn't the only way to interpret, but The Chosen,
Yes.
which I'm a big fan of, and I go and watch this whole season, this last season, the 4th season, in the theater with friends, and
Yeah.
shout out to everybody at The Chosen and Dallas and everybody. I think one of the things they are inviting is to look at the stories and the people. I almost said characters, but they're real people. Dallas allowing the actors to have certain traits or certain personalities. Maybe they were that way, maybe they weren't. We don't
Yeah.
really know, right? But also introducing us to a different way to look at the stories we've been reading over and over and over, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are really attracted to that.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Like I worked on The Chosen,
Yeah.
right? And working with those actors, working with Dallas, there is such a genuineness that's different. And I'm not saying that like we don't have that, but I'm just saying when Dallas talks about Jesus, he's talking about a relationship,
Oh, very Christ-centered.
a very Christ-centered
Yeah.
relationship that he has,
Mm.
right? And I know for me, when I talk about Jesus, it's a relationship. Like I know how he feels. I know how he sounds. I know like the type of jokes he'll say, you know. I know the type of pranks he'll play on me. He does all the time, you know. And so just putting me in like random situations, I'm like, dude, why would you do this? But thank you, you know. But that's just how it has been, right?
Yeah, it seems that your relationship with Christ, I've watched this grow over the years and then have become more intimate as far as like close to you, doing meditation and stuff like that. That the feeling that I feel inside of you is a stronger desire. It's showing up in this episode, to have other people also have that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to take people away from their belonging places or their churches or their things, but an invitation to come home.
Yeah, and it's a good way of putting it. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to someone who didn't see it that way.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was kind of offensive. Like it was offensive to her.
Okay.
You know, because she felt that I felt like I was better than other people, and that's how she interpreted it.
Okay.
And that I was like trying to say that like their way's not right, my way's right. And I'm like, man, I'm so bummed that that's how it was interpreted, because for me, it's like, when I have like a delicious piece of pie, I just want to share with other people. It's not like saying, hey, you're eating cardboard. Here, eat pie.
Right.
It's not that. It's like, I just want to share.
There can be more. It can
There
be
can be
deeper.
more. It can be deeper, you know? And for me, the love of God is so incredibly wonderful and so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
Because it's so incredibly wonderful because it's like the most elated, most peaceful, most ever expanding, soul expanding thing I could ever feel. And it's also the most painful because I know other people aren't feeling that.
Yeah.
Because other people I know are like crippled in anxiety and worry and not feeling safe or not feeling like they belong anywhere, not feeling like they connect anywhere. And I'm like, this is the
carrying
key.
the chains.
Right. Yeah.
That have already been paid for, right?
Yeah. So for me, yeah, if I could share that with everyone, that would be amazing. If there's a way, you know, like I could like just say, just take the joy out of me, you know, or whatever, right?
So I want to kind of dig into one of the ways I feel like you do get closer to Christ is through meditation. Is that fair to say?
Big time.
So a few years ago, I went on my own journey. This is kind of what brought us together in meditation on Buddhism. I felt really strongly for myself to go and just read and learn more about the tenets, specifically about emptying the cup of like whatever, right? Letting go. I was having a very strong need to like let go. I had these very heavy things that I wanted that were not getting met in my life.
Right.
One being I would like to get married and have a partner, and two being I would like to be a mother. And they were really tearing at my soul, I guess you could say, as far as like one of those has a timeline.
Yeah.
The other doesn't, but I would like them to come together. So both of them had a timeline for me, and I was feeling a lot of stress, and I was feeling the need to like let go, to give it to God or to lay it on the altar. But I hadn't really figured out how to do that very well with grace. You know, I felt like I was kind of thrashing. And so I decided that I would go on this journey. Meditation wasn't really a thing I was really into before that because I have pretty severe ADHD, and I feel like it was really hard for my brain to, and I think people can relate to this that have this, to settle down enough to like have an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Previous to me working with you and previous to me like reading a lot about Buddhism, I really didn't understand what meditation was. I really thought it was a thought process,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I now know is not really about my thoughts very much at all. It's a feel process.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of brought us closer in this idea that I found out that you were doing meditation and that you had invited me to come do a meditation with you, guided meditation, and also just like our own meditation side by side. I'm curious about your journey about that and how you got there and why that's important
Honestly,
to you and bringing people into that.
Well, it's interesting because I know nothing about meditation. All right. I'm so glad you prefaced all of this so I can say I know nothing about meditation.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I really know nothing about it. I mean, I never studied
You're not like
it.
a guru?
I'm not a guru. Oh man, I'm not a guru. I don't study any of that stuff. I'm more of an experiment as I go.
Yeah.
I've always
Feel
been
it.
you feel it, experiment with it. Like I've always had like a logical scientific mind. So it's weird because I take spirituality, which is like kind of etheric or whatever, but I take it from a logical approach or a scientific approach. I'm like, okay, I tried this happened. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Let me try this a little again. I'm gonna put this on and see what happens. And so I was just kind of like feeling it as I went. I never, I know people like study, like they read like Wayne Dyer, or they have all these different people that are just like these gurus that have had like so much knowledge and wisdom. And I did listen to a lot of it, and a lot of it did like, I guess, impress on my mind years ago. I don't listen to any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Well, you found your own way to do it.
I did. And I just kind of felt like I didn't want another leader. Like, I'm like, I think all this stuff is already within me.
Yeah.
So if it's already within me, like all the answers are within me, then why don't I just go within me and find all the answers?
That's such a therapy thing to say,
right?
Which I love as a therapist, by the way. All the answers are
within
you.
Right. Yeah.
Take note, everybody.
Take note. Yeah. Well, like the scriptures even say the kingdom
I believe
of God.
That's so strongly. No one's actually articulated it so well on their own without me sort of guiding helping them that I just want to pause and say, that truth that you have inside of you, that's a saving truth. That you have what you need, right? Yeah. I often say, when I say to be known, that's what it is. I know who I am. I know who I am, whose I am, and I know and that I have what I need inside of me. And if I don't have what I need, I know where to go to get it. Is a knowledge I think so few people feel. They might think they know it, but like really feel. When you know that, there's not much you can't do, or there's not many volcanoes or mountains or things you talked about that you can't ride that wave and figure out how to get to the other, to the safety or to the home place, right? Because that knowledge is so integral. I would guess. True. Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about me. It seems like that's
that. Yeah, it really is. And like, so you ask about like meditation, like what got me to that place, and how do I know this stuff, right? Well, it was interesting because I was kind of dabbling a little bit in California when I was living there and playing around and like trying to experiment. Didn't really know what I was doing. And one of the things I always tell people is like, guys, one of the things that I feel like God has blessed me with, like more than anything else, like a really, really, really healthy dose of cluelessness. Like, what the crud am I doing?
Curiosity,
but I'll call it cluelessness. Okay. I'm like, oh, I got no idea, bro. Let's go, But
you do have but let's just go. You just said it. Let's just try.
Let's just try it out. I've always had that personality.
Which
I love doing that. But 2020, COVID hit, right? And when COVID hit, the world shut down, and I was like everyone, just trying to figure out, what do we do now? Like, what is life looking like right now? Fortunately, I had some money saved up, so I wasn't overly concerned about finances.
Which is good, because your industry went
kaput
for a while.
Yeah, it did. It did. But I was okay. I was fine. And for whatever reason, I just knew I was going to be okay.
I love that.
So I prayed a lot, and I said, hey, what should I be doing right now? What is
spend my time?
How do I spend my time, And ironically, that's how I got into podcasting, was during that time.
Okay.
Right? But one of the things that God said to me is like, Charan, I need you to listen to me like very closely. This is very serious. I'm like, okay, yeah. What do you have? He's like,
Lean in.
I need you to focus on having more fun. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you heard me right. Have more fun. And I'm like, wait, what? And I kept like asking him, I'm like, hang on, just,
You seem like a full of fun
you
person.
know, and I'm like, and he's like, well, what do you mean? And then I would ask him like, would that be, he's like, no, that's not fun enough for you. Like do something else. And then I would like go experiment and ask him, how about this? He's like, yeah, that'd be fun. Like give that a shot, you know? And I asked him, why is it so important that I have fun? And he's like, because then you'll finally be authentic. And I'm like, what? Have I not been authentic? And he's like, think about this, Charan. How many decisions have you made in your life that were based upon someone else's idea? And I started thinking about that. And I'm like, oh, shoot, a lot. A lot of decisions I have made in my life have been based on someone else's ideas. Hey, you should do this or you should do that.
You should go here.
Yeah, you should go here. But when you have fun, when it's your choice to have fun, it's authentic and it's real, and you'll have so much more connection to me.
Inviting.
Yes.
And like just flows from you, right?
Flows from me. So I started thinking like, well, what is fun for me, right? And I remember as a kid, after my parents divorced and I was like living in Colorado, my dad had left. My dad would go to work, and my brother would be in like homeschool or like some sort of like school, summer school. I was left by myself, which was fine for me because I was happy being by myself. But even during those times, I would sit down and I'd close my eyes and I would meditate, and even though I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
There was something about
just
that.
Grounding.
It just felt like, and I was a kid. I was like 13 or 14 years old. No one taught me to do that, but I just somehow naturally went to doing that. And so I was like, wait a minute, like I remember doing that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to find a place. I need to find a place where there's no cars around, like there's nobody around. Like I want open space in nature for me to just go and like just sit. And I found a place. And so I would go there. No one was around, totally quiet. And I would just go and sit and close my eyes and be like, I don't know what the crap I'm doing, but I'm here, you know? And I was like, am I imagining things or am I not, you know? Because I would like kind of start sinking inward. I would start surrendering. I would start going inward.
I feel like this is most
Right.
people's beginning, and where they're like, is this my head
Yeah.
or my voice? Is this
No
this is where
clue.
most people jump out of
Yes.
meditation versus in?
Because your ego starts taking over and like, dude, like, what are you doing? Why are you in
You're
the
weird, or this isn't.
bizarre,
Yeah.
you know? But then I would just kind of, I'm weird my whole life. I'm gonna go in, you know. So I was
I was born weird.
I was
Here we
born
go.
weird. Here we go. So I was closing my eyes and I just start sinking inward. That's all I would do. And at first, it was my imagination. I'm like, I think I'm imagining this, and then suddenly something happened. My imagination just started taking a life of its own, and suddenly I wasn't the driver, but a passenger, and creation just started taking shape in front of me.
Mm.
And then Jesus started coming to me. He's like, finally, buddy, you're here. Let's go. And I'm like, whoa, dude, where are we going? This is amazing. And I'm like, am I imagining this? And then all of a sudden, things just started like unraveling and unraveling and unraveling. And I've had two experiences in my life that I still think about to this day that happened to me like when I was younger, that I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was even then Jesus was teaching me, right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Transformers, like obsessed, right? And we had one of those black and white TVs with the dial and the antenna.
Help us,
You
because
know.
some people will think Transformers are.
Like, I'm talking about Optimus Prime
Okay.
cartoon,
Okay.
okay? In case you guys want to know. Like, and now I am obsessed with like the cars that were turned into robots and turned back to cars or planes, you know?
Okay.
And the cartoon show was on, and I loved watching that show. And so I would have one of those, like I would try to watch it, but the antenna sometimes wouldn't pick up the signal properly, and then it would be like totally fuzzy, or else like the dial wouldn't work properly. So I found that the best way to make it work is I literally had to stand right next to the TV, holding the antenna and holding the dial between 12 and 13. I remember and
Just
like
had to hit the thing.
it was a hit,
Yeah.
and I would hit the TV sometimes, and then Optimus Prime would be coming on clearly, and I'm like, oh, there he is. There's Optimus, and I would have to stand there, and my parents thought I was nuts
Yeah.
because I would wake up. It was like
The
7 a.m.
dedication.
But I was dedicated, like 6:50 a.m. I would wake up just to make sure I'd have the
I
dial in
love
place
it.
for
Dial
7
it
a.m.
in, hold the thing.
For a half hour straight, and I was too afraid to let it go during commercial break because I don't think I would have gotten it back. But there was something about standing there with my body. My body had to be there holding a certain frequency that allowed me to watch Transformers, right?
Yeah.
And I had to stay there.
You were like the grounding
I was the
thing,
grounding thing, right? And I learned then that, wait a minute, what if we're all energetic beings, which we are, which means more than just like, oh, I feel like good energy. I'm saying like there's an actual, like we are created of energy, that we have vibrational energy. If we were to like zoom in on us, you see vibrational energy, right? So if we have an energy and we have a certain frequency, and Jesus has a certain frequency and a certain energy, and if I just tune into him, if I figure out how to turn my body to tune into whatever that looks like, then he suddenly becomes in clear focus. And he's like, finally, just like Optimus, he's like, finally, I'm here. Let's go. And that's what happened to me.
And I love this because you are talking about this, and we've talked about this outside of here in a really deep level, but on a very surface level, I want to pause and say,
yeah,
how often do people who say that they are Christians or say that the most important thing to them is their family or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Where your heart is, there's your treasure. But how often do they do that much commitment? Hold your body and turn the dial and focus in on whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm metaphorically though, like make the time, do the thing, figure out the dial. Like that's a lot of work to see Optimus Prime. I wonder how many of us are more passive. We say this is my most important thing or this is what I value the most, but like how often are we dialed in, right?
Well, it's interesting because I wouldn't have done it if I didn't like the show. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I loved Optimus Prime. I
Yeah.
loved Transformers, right? And so when I tasted how good that was, I'm like, dude, I have to have it. It's amazing, right? Like it's the same of like, this is what I sometimes I liken a lot of time Christians to, like they go to a bakery, right? And the chef talks about these pies that have been made. I'm obsessed with pies. I'm gonna keep bringing them up. And he keeps talking about it. He's like, oh wow, and people are like, wow, that's an amazing pie. Like, wow, like look at the ingredients you made to make that pie. And then they finally leave. They're like, wow, woo, what a great day at the bakery. Those pies were delicious. And I'm just like, are you out of your mind? No one ate the pie. We talked about the pie. We talked about the ingredients of the pie. We looked at it. We like observed it, but we never ate the pie.
Yeah.
Right? That I think is the problem.
Yeah.
Is when you finally eat the pie, you know you can never go back to just talking about the pie.
Yeah.
Because the pie is so delicious.
Can I share with you the moment for me? We were in the Tetons.
Yes.
We were in a cabin.
I remember, yes.
And
in Wyoming, right?
Yeah.
Was it Wyoming? Yeah.
And you said to me, we were with a bunch of great people, great friends, good people, just like a good, if you listen to my last episode, Hugo, Kristen talks about this, where the fire is going and everyone has food and they're gathered. We had the most great gathering, right? And I remember you sort of metaphorically or physically tapped on me and said, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And we walked and I was like, what's this about? My brain was just like, Charan, what are we? And we walked around. Do you remember the back of the cabin?
I thought we just sat there, right?
We went on a little walk and then we came back to the back of the cabin.
Okay, yeah.
And we slumped ourselves down. Yes. We sat down with our backs against the wall. You told me this experience you just shared, which I'm so grateful for. And I felt so what I would call grounded. Again, as a person with ADHD that has what's called this revved up engine. There was this peace, this like general hum that wasn't like like the inside of me is like just like always on fire. And that's addicting to me, right? The ability to like just be still. There's been a few people in my life where if they touch my knee or they sit next to me, and then you told me this experience about the frequency, that began our journey of me being like, hey, can we meditate? Partly because I feel like you're a grounding source in your relationship with Christ. And partly because just I felt it there, and you talked about Jesus and we talked about it, and I wanted more. I don't know that I tasted the pie right then. I think intellectually I felt like
But there was
the
something
curiosity.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, there was
And
curiosity.
then once we actually meditated and once we actually were having experiences, I would say, there you can't go back, right?
When you have that experience, right, with Jesus, like
Yeah.
you can never go back to just hearing an idea about him.
Yeah.
I think that might be one of the reasons why I struggle with like things like church, because I know what it's like to experience him.
Yeah.
You know, and when I experience him, that is a whole body experience. My entire body is filled with light, and it stays in light, and it's like the most ever expanding. You feel like you're in heaven. You're having the most delicious experience.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on here and talk about this is because it's not that just you want to have it, you also want to share it with others.
Yes.
And you have some hits and you have some misses.
Totally.
And I want to just say, in this process of putting this podcast together and in my life, and why I wanted to talk about belonging and connection, is that I feel like some of the best connection, some of the best belonging places I have came out of like a lot of trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of finding the right people, finding your right tribe, or who's going to find that thing, that quirky thing or that weird thing the same that I find it. I find you, I said earlier, I see you as a producer, but I also see you as like a connector, a person who wants to have other people connecting to others, but also wants to have them sort of feel what you're feeling as well.
It's one of the greatest joys ever, honestly, like to have friends that can connect and see that. Like one of my most favorite
synergy.
friends, is and this is again one of those things where it's like, wow, what a miracle. In 2015, I think is when it was, 2014, 2015, I was living in California in Glendale.
Okay.
And my roommate, so I had a guy roommate and a girl roommate, and my roommate, Christy, she introduced me to a book series called Fablehaven.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay. This fantasy book series. And it's a very popular book series and whatnot. And
dinosaurs, right?
no,
dragons.
like it was like
No?
there were dragons in it. There's like mythological creatures,
Okay.
right? They have like these magical preserves,
Okay.
right, with mythological creatures on them. And I remember reading them, and because she said like they're so good, they're written by this author Brandon Mull, and I remember reading them, and I was hooked. I was like, dude, these books are amazing. Like, I'm an adult, but I'm like, I don't care. I love them. Like, you know, they were just, they're so good.
I read those as an adult, and I also was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, these are amazing. And so I loved Fablehaven, like, and I got through them really quickly. And so I'm like, wait, what else has Brandon written? So I read these other series called Five Kingdoms, another series called Beyonders. Like, and I just was like hooked.
Shout
I was
out
like,
to Brandon.
You know, yeah, exactly. But what was interesting was, I was always like, man, I know he lives in Utah. One day, if I could ever meet him, that would be insane. You know, I would love that. You know, I know. And so and then like years later, I'm in Utah.
You willed it into being.
Well, it was weird because I happened to be with a group of friends, and one of my friends, she's like, oh, Brandon Mull is a good friend of mine. I'm like, shut everything up right now. What? And because he was like always like this etheric figure, like, oh, Brandon Mull this, Brandon Mull that, you know, yada yada yada, and like he has like this party, but like it was like so mysterious, like no one knew, but like she apparently is good friends with him, so she arranged for us to like all go and have dinner, right? And I remember even that initial dinner, we're like talking, and he seemed a little reserved, a little quiet. I'm like, okay, you know, no problem. And we're like just kind of eating and stuff. And I met his wife, and I was just happy to be there. And then somehow or other, we started talking about Christ.
Somehow or other, you probably.
Okay, somehow or other, I brought it up, you know. And
I love it. I love it.
You know, I just started talking about Jesus.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course.
And suddenly their ears perked up and their eyes perked up, and they started asking me questions, and I'm like, oh. And I was like, can I talk to you about like these type of things? And they seemed extremely open. The following week, they just invited me to go have dinner with them. So Brandon and Erlyn and myself.
Nice.
And the three of us went, and we just had like the deepest, most amazing connection. And like Brandon says, like Erlyn never does that to anybody, but she felt strongly that we needed to all connect. And so I said, hey, I'd like to introduce you to some people. And so then we all met other people. And that was like a couple of years ago now. And like they are some of my best friends. And I meditate
I
with them
love that post. I know you
every
regularly,
single
right?
week. Yes.
Yeah.
We meditate every single week together. And like we have like all these experiences together where we're sharing light and love together and experiencing Jesus in a completely different way. And here I was thinking, wow, what an amazing, like,
What
I
a
read
great
his book.
writer.
Yeah, what a great writer. And I want to meet him. And now we're like meditating together,
I love
right?
this.
And so when I think about those type of experiences and I think how often that's happened, um, for me, that's like another one of those like tender little mercies of like God saying, hey, you're on the right path. Like, keep going. I'll share this other one like really quickly because it just happened this last week.
Love it.
I was with my friend with Lindsay is her name. Lindsay Hadley is her name. And she's an awesome person. She just moved to Utah with her husband, Jeff, who ironically, Jeff and I served missions together.
Okay.
Anyway, so random.
Where did you serve?
Australia.
Okay, because you talked about it earlier.
So fun.
Australia,
Yeah,
okay.
Australia. The Melbourne West Mission.
Okay.
Anyway, so Lindsay is a film producer as well, and she's making a big movie. She's actually working with like Matt Damon's company,
Nice.
Ben Affleck's company, and she's producing a movie starring Jessica Alba.
Okay.
So she's telling me about it earlier this past week, right? And as she is, I'm like, oh, that's so funny. Like I said, actually, I don't know Jessica, but her brother's a friend of mine, and I've known his name is Josh, and I haven't talked to Josh in years, maybe like 5-ish years, 10 years, something like that, because he lives in California. I'm here, just different lives, but he's a really, really good guy, Christian guy. The following day, Tuesday, I'm with some other people, and we're talking about The Chosen,
Yeah.
right? And talking about just like, because I was on that show, and we were talking about it. And then moments later, I get a text message from Josh.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. And he's like, bro, you're on The Chosen? And like, he's like talking about The Chosen. And I'm like, dude, how is it possible? Like, I was just talking about you yesterday. And like, now you're messaging me. So it's like things like that keep happening over and over and over in my life, which make me realize that like, I feel like the more I lean into this, the more life works out so beautifully.
I love that. Can I flip
need you to.
the story and can we dig to a piece? You probably don't even remember this, Charan, because of the way you live your life. And because I feel like you have, I don't know if the word assimilate is the right word, but you have figured out how to be authentically you and make everybody around you feel so comfortable and them feel so comfortable with you that you're not really this other, the kid that was against the wall. However, I had an interesting experience. You and I went to an event. We had very different experiences at this event on your behalf. I don't know if you remember this, but we went to a fundraising event,
Yes.
a black tie event,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
And we showed up. I was very excited to have you there as my date, and we both looked really nice. And that night went really not good for me on your behalf. So what happened is there was a couple people at the table. I'm sure they were great, nice people, but they kept saying your name wrong.
Oh.
And they also kept bringing up things like about you being Indian and like, oh, are you really from Provo? They kept saying things to me that felt very like racist or death by 1,000 small cuts.
Okay.
And it was so noticeable to me. I hated every second of it. I was like, just say his name right.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Just like he's just at the table with all the rest of us. Like it was so othering for me that I don't think
I remember
noticed.
That. Yeah, I don't think I remember.
You have either just lived where people do that enough or whatever. And I didn't necessarily know what to do. I felt very awkward. I'm going to be honest. I was like, do I say something to this? He was white, this white man who keeps sort of saying racist things to my friend. That if Charan doesn't care, should I care? Like if Charan's not correcting him, should I not correct him? And anyway, the night went on. There was a few more things that him and his wife said. I don't even really know them. I wouldn't put them on blast anyway, but I went home and I felt really like sad. I felt really hurt. The empath in me was like, yikes, does that happen a lot to my friend? My friend that I love, that brings color to the world, that's funny, that's like anything but what I experienced at that table. I'm curious, and I ended up talking to a friend and being like, what should I have done? I think I even talked to you a little bit about it at the time, but I'm curious, Sharon, and maybe you don't notice because it happens, but the other side of you, this
Mm.
beautiful picture that you just talked about,
Yeah.
you live in a pretty predominantly white place. You
Yes.
actually moved to LA, decided that wasn't necessarily for you, so you're back in Utah. I'm not trying to make you share if you feel othered, but I'm curious. The belonging place is about building connection and belonging, but there's this other side of belonging when a
Right.
bunch of people, whether the church, whether you're the culture, whether whatever, and then people feeling like they're on the outside of that. First of all, do you feel that? Do you see that around you? And second of all, what do you do in those circumstances? Because you seem to be like the kind of guy that doesn't want to ruffle feathers. That just kind of wants
Yeah.
everybody to belong. Maybe even if it's at your
Expense or something.
expense. And I'm
Mm.
curious about that. I'm curious about that boundary for you,
Yeah.
or how you walk through the world that way.
It's interesting, right? I mean, truth be told, I don't feel like I belong in this world at all. I
Okay.
really don't, you know?
You're not home.
I don't feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because I have way too much joy for this world. You
Okay.
know, I do feel so much joy, and that's a genuine feeling.
And
know
it's
I
felt
do.
by everybody around you, right? It's probably the connecting piece
Yeah.
between you and your friends, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, I know for sure I feel a lot of peace and joy, and that comes from a place that's not from outside here.
Right. External.
It's comes from within. It comes from like going to God and like getting filled with his light that's so ever expanding and expansive that I'm like, this is amazing, right? So I do feel a sense of loneliness, but not loneliness in sense of depression, but loneliness because I'm like, dude, no one knows how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
This is an amazing feeling, right? So to that event that you're talking about, the truth was I didn't really fully even like register like that. And I'm sure from their place, from their vantage point, they were just trying to maybe build bridges or have understanding, being curious. But it is interesting. My name is one of those things. I actually had an interview with some friends of mine about my name.
Yeah.
Because the way to properly say my full name is Charan Prabhakar. That's my full name. Or you would say Charan. But Charan, yeah. But I've always gone by Charan. Like that's what feels authentic to me.
Yeah.
Right. But I also love the name, the game telephone. So I love to share my name and then just see how far we go off.
You do love that.
I do love it because it not only does it happen quite often, I'm surprised by how quick it happens. Because I say Charan and they're like, okay, cool. So Charan is over here. Come meet Charan. And I'm like, how did this happen? But I love it, you know? And I don't really get upset by it.
You choose humor.
I choose humor.
You choose connecting rather than being offended. It was obvious to me. I was having a different experience than you were having, which is why I went home and I was like, what is that about? Why do I care more? You know what I'm saying? I had a very awesome opportunity to sit with myself and in the experience that I saw, because I saw you being, I don't know if fine is the word, but like what you just shared.
Yeah.
My name is a little bit different. So like, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. But it is interesting. I have several friends that take it upon themselves to correct everyone if they say my name wrong. And it's awesome, you know? I remember I have a friend, Ashley, who she was working there's like a group of people that like I work with some of these people, and one of the guys like was never able to say my name right, and they were like, it's Charan, and they were like, she was like on him until he said it, and so now he always says it with such enunciation. It's amazing.
It's Charan.
Yeah, it's Charan. And I'm like, guys, it rhymes with Darren or Karen, but it's Charan, you know. But it is interesting. I haven't felt. I think maybe when I was younger, I felt more bullied because of being brown, or being a certain way, and I think in my adult years, I have definitely felt more maybe curiosity. There was a time I do remember, like maybe like a year or two ago, where I was helping my friend move, right? And he has been having some struggles, a lot of struggles within the church and stuff, but also within his family, because he was like saying, he's like, these thoughts that my parents are having are racist thoughts, like extremely racist thoughts, you know? And he's like, I feel like I'm inheriting some of those thoughts, you know? So I remember helping him move, you know, and his dad was there, and he never said hi to me. He never even would look at me or shake my hand or whatever. And it was interesting because I was like, oh, I wonder how that makes me feel. I'm like, I feel fantastic with myself.
I'm good with me.
Yeah, I'm good with me. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm sorry for the hate that's going on in their lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you walk through the world because of your relationship of how you feel about you and how you feel about your relationship with Christ and God. That's not your problem. It's their problem.
Yeah, I think so. Cause I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Cause like, obviously whenever people have like those things of like racism or whatever it is, I just think, oh, that's just a little bit of hate that you have for yourself.
Yeah. I have one more question about this when it comes to film. When it comes to film in this area, you know, there's so much. I'm a big musical theater person. There's been a lot of, thank the heavens, a lot of really positive, pro-positive change for just diverse, like anybody can play any role. That has not always been the case in media and in film. And same thing. Do you have the same experience in film and roles? Do you feel like, well, if people don't see me as a versatile actor, that's on them?
Yeah.
Or do you feel... Yeah, I've just been curious to ask you about being an actor.
For sure.
That, you know, you're represented by... Who are you represented by?
Well, in Utah, I'm represented by TMG.
And they have a pretty light... I mean, they have some people, right? Diverse. But I mean, you're, again, look different than a lot of the people they're representing for parts, right?
Yeah.
Parts that probably could be done by just about anybody and end up being done a lot by white people.
Honestly,
I'm curious about it.
I'll tell you what, I get a ton of roles.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, actually. Because I do look different.
Okay, so that's in your favor.
It's totally in my favor. Okay. Yeah, in fact, when I moved back to Utah, I asked my agent, because I left Utah because I didn't feel like there were any roles for me, really. But when I moved back, I said, hey, what is it looking like right now? And they're like, Charan, if you move back, we will put you to work.
I love this so much. Go Utah.
I'm telling you, I work a lot. Like, in fact, in LA, if I got 20 to 30 auditions for commercials, that's a good year. Just auditions. In Utah, I work 20 to 30 commercials.
Yay!
Right? Like, I don't like, I'm just like, dude, this is amazing. Okay. Right? So I work a ton as an actor. And it's been very, very helpful and awesome and super happy. And it was interesting too, because when I was also first starting out, I felt like a lot of the roles were like, hey, Charan, can you have the accent? Can you have the accent?
Can you be an East Indian
guy?
Character?
And I totally can. I mean, especially like if it's like...
And you can pull on the accent so well.
Well, you're very kind. I mean, I try my very best, but sometimes I give up. No, I have done that before. And the thing is, I look at it like, hey, let's like... If we're not being overly stereotypical, like if this is just an actual character coming from India and doing this thing, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I can. And if it's something where it's like, oh, we're doing this just for the laughs or whatever, I'm like, nah, I'm not overly interested in doing that.
To make fun of.
Yeah, to make fun of, right? But I've actually found when I was in LA, they did not want me to have the accent. They were like, hey, no, we want you to have an American accent.
Great.
You know, and they were very much about like, no, we want to get rid of stereotypes. You know, any role can be played by any person, and you don't have to be an Indian guy or an American guy or an Asian guy. You don't have to be any of those things. You can play it. Just be a good actor, right? And so that was awesome to have those experiences. But yeah, I find that like right now, what's interesting is because I respect myself as a person, the roles I get are more roles where they respect me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I really do feel like there is something to be said about the way you view yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you view yourself with dignity and with light and being a child of God and like loving yourself as such, those are the type of things that kind of naturally come your way.
Yeah.
Right? But if
they conspire for your good, I almost feel like,
conspire for your good. But if you're like constantly trying to prove yourself, I mean, oh, I'm so good, I'm so this, I'm so that. Well, that's because you don't view yourself like that.
Yeah. Or you're stuck in a victim mentality.
Yes. And so you're trying to overcompensate.
Yeah.
And you're still going to get things coming your way that's going to show that you still feel like a victim.
Yeah.
Right? So
I have like 2 questions left.
Please.
One question is there any particular project that you're currently working on that you want to talk about or share?
Sure. So there's a couple different things that I'm doing right now. I mean, I'm releasing a film called Alien Country, which is going to be so fun. Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
and
I've seen
you saw a version.
not full.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see
the new
full
version is awesome. It's so fun and it's finished, so it's great. And that's going to come out hopefully in theaters in October.
Oh, that's exciting.
We're hoping.
I saw this. I want to shout out the festival that I saw this at. It's
Yes.
at the Zion's.
Yes.
What is it called?
Zion's Indie Film Festival.
And they just had it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say to everybody who's listening to this podcast, please, when it comes around,
Yes.
they've been holding it at the Sarah, and it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so that's coming out in October.
We're hoping to have that come out in October.
Can you give a summary of it?
Yeah, well, it's really just it's just whimsical and it's fun and it's kind of like the tone of Guardians of the Galaxy, but basically it's about this couple that live in this small town called Blue River, and they're trying to figure out where they are in their relationship, right? Like Everly, the girl wants to like leave town and like be a singer and all this stuff, and he just wants to stay in town. And they're trying to figure out how to stay in their relationship when things have kind of fizzled a little bit, right? How do you like make the fire keep going? Luckily, there's an alien invasion. And so they have to like work together to fight off this alien invasion and basically save their relationship as well.
I love this. And this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but I'm going to give you to look for. Mm-hmm. My very favorite scene in the whole movie is a scene that happens in the bedroom. It's not what you think, everybody. Yeah. But it's a bedroom scene. And I believe it's a one take scene. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to leave it there because I don't think there's very many. There's just that one scene. I am still thinking about it, obviously, today, a year ago, right? So look for that scene. Okay.
It's a
and you said
scene.
Another project?
Yeah. So the other one I'm doing is a movie called Graduation and Therapy, which you actually came to a table read for.
Yeah, which is very exciting.
Yes. I'm very, very excited about this one. This one is a movie that I initially wrote years and years ago, and then I'm not really a writer. I knew the themes, I knew the ideas, but I don't consider myself a good writer. But my buddy Corbin Allred, who's a fantastic actor.
We love you, Corbin.
We love Corbin, and he's also a fantastic friend. I've known him for over 20 years now. And I went over to him and I said, dude, I know you're a great writer. I've read some of your scripts. Can you rework the heck out of this? He reworked it and it's fantastic.
It is so good.
Yes, I'm so excited for it.
I was in tears. I mean, there's a theme in it that relates to me and my life. And I'm not going to spoil it at all. But I cried at the end and made a comment in the audience. And I want to kind of end with this, Charan. One of the things that, and another reason why I wanted to invite you on this podcast of belonging is I'm looking for people who have created belonging places, gathering places. And I find, so through the years, I'm a big fan of you. I love you as a friend. I'm grateful to consider you just like a real friend, not a fan, right? I'm a fan of you too. But when I show up at these table reads, or when I show up at the movie's not quite done, but stick in there with us, right? The behind the scenes as a friend, I'm always amazed at the gathering places of people that are there. And we're talking about actors and producers and boom mic people, and we're talking about script holder people. I don't even have the names for them. Yeah. And we're talking about friends of friends of friends, and we're talking about spouses. I mean, the gathering places that happen in those venues are, remarkable. One of my favorite belonging places to be is with creatives, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's comedians or actors or musicians, there's something really powerful about that. It's something that I think you're very, very good at. You write this idea and then you're like, somebody can do it better. And then you invite somebody in, and then he invites, there was a whole slew of people that were up there, right, to share it. And then it takes on this movement of its own. This particular movie also talks about India. Yeah. So this brings your kind of a full circle. It's back here, back where you were born, and it's very exciting. They do a really good job representing a great therapist. That was a comment that I made, because sometimes the therapists are just made fun of in the shows. My last question for you, Charan, is is there anything that you, on the topic of connection,
Mm-hmm.
belonging, kind of it being the anecdote to some of our other problems in our lives or loneliness or things, is there anything you want to say that we didn't cover?
There's one thing
Yeah,
actually.
please.
Yeah. So in 2012, I was in India and I went to visit my cousins in a place called Pondicherry, which is funny enough where Life of Pi was actually filmed.
Oh, okay.
So Pondicherry is like the southeast part of India, and my family, my mom grew up there, right? And the way things are set up in India, it's as if it's like a big house and everyone lives together. Cousins, everyone, like just all in like one big household. And it's not as much like that way anymore, but when I was growing up as a kid, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I'm there in India and I'm with all these cousins, okay? And I asked my one cousin, and I don't know a lot of these guys. They're like second cousins and stuff like that. It was kind of like me meeting them for the first time,
Yeah.
but it felt like this instant connection, instant family, right? And I asked my one buddy Karthik, I said, hey, if you could live anywhere in the world, anywhere at all, where would you live? Without even blinking, he's like, Pondicherry.
Here.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. You misunderstood the question. Let me rephrase. Anywhere in the world at all. And he's like, oh yeah, Pondicherry. And I'm like, why? Like, why would you pick Pondicherry? He's like, because I'm never lonely here. And I'm like, huh. And I thought about that trip with them. Everything was celebrated. Everything was filled with love. Like I remember my one cousin, it was like someone's birthday, and like, Charan, wonderful news, Charan. There's a new restaurant. We're going to take you to a new restaurant, Charan. And I'm like, great. What's this restaurant? It's called Pizza Hut. And I'm like, oh, I think I know what Pizza Hut is. They go, no, Charan, we'll take you to the Pizza Hut. And so they're like taking me to Pizza Hut. And like everything was just a joy. They wanted to share.
It was an
like,
experience.
It's an experience, right? And I remember like we were trying to figure out like what to do for exercise, okay? Because I was like, man, guys, like we're sitting around, we're doing nothing. Like, what do we do for exercise?
I remember you called me, and everything was eating.
Yeah, it
We
was
eat,
all
and then we sit around,
sit
and then
around.
we eat.
Eat.
And so
Yes.
you're like, I gotta move my body.
move
I
my
remember
body.
that call, and
Oh,
you're
I
like,
gotta-
Kylie,
I know.
all we do is eat.
Yeah, that's all it is. This is terrible. And so I remember we were like, okay. They're like, oh, Charan, yes, we take walks on the beach. I'm like, okay, great. Anything more physical than walks on the beach? TT, Charan, TT. And I'm like, what's TT? They're like, table tennis. And I'm like, okay, we're moving up in the right direction of movement.
Funny.
And then finally we settled on swimming because
Okay.
I was like super stoked about that. But then we went to the pool and they told me that they had no idea how to swim. And I'm like, what? And so we all got in the pool and they were just like screaming and they're like splashing around like they didn't know what to do. And I started swimming over the deep end. And they're like, oh, Charan, please come here. No, don't do crazy things. Come to the shallow, you know?
How dare you?
Yeah. The deep end was 5 feet deep, just so FYI. Like it was amazing. But the thing was, through that whole experience, I realized something. There was palpable amounts of love between all of us. Palpable. Like you could tangibly feel this connection, feel this love. Like there was no room for anxiety or insecurity. Like there just wasn't room for that.
Or even like multitasking agendas.
Yeah, there was not.
We're
It was
really
just
present.
you were completely present and you were feeling like so whole. And guess what we didn't have in our hands? Our phones.
Yeah.
We were playing, we were goofing around, we were having so much fun, right? And so we talk about connection, we talk about belonging, and I think to myself, they live in a place in Pondicherry, which quote unquote in my mind might not have like the luxuries that the US may offer, but oh my gosh, the joy that they had is like greater than anything I've ever seen, right?
Love that.
They have so much hope, they have so much joy, they find joy in the simplest of things. And I think like they were they were all mentors for me. Yeah. And they started teaching me like, hey, if I want to have belonging and connection, do I need to have something rich? Do I need to have something fancy? No, I do not. And I don't care about any of that stuff. What do I care about is like having good friends and like, you know, like sharing like cool meditative experiences if they want to talk about that, or like road trips or things like that are just so fun and we get to hang out and joke around and just feel safe. That to me is true joy and true connection. And if I could do that all day long for the rest of my life, I'm a happy man.
Love that. In summary, I feel like some of the themes that you brought up are um, to know yourself and to be known is really important in the way that you come across in the world and how you interact with people. Have fun.
Yes.
Life is meant to be fun and have joy. And I think be present. I think you're a great example of this. I mean, meditation, I think, helps this, but I think in general, like be with the people that you're with. That moment where you said, "Hey, Kylie, can we just go on a walk?" is is just like a moment. Like I'm thinking of that movie. The emotions were like the balls that she collected. It's like a solid ball in my heart, and there was nothing crazy about that moment. It was just a very like I tap you and you tap me, and let's go sit against the wall in the back in the middle
Yeah.
of the Teton Forest. I wish for that for everybody, right? Moments of connection that are not big and flashy, or maybe even big groups of gathering, but really feeling known and really belonging. Um, and thank you
Of
for
course.
bringing that, for sharing your heart, and for being a person who I consider that just creates belonging and connection everywhere you go. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for, sorry for all my shenanigans,
No,
but I'm
you're
not
fine.
sorry at
Everybody
all.
check out
Okay.
Charan on all this upcoming stuff
And Random X. I'm on Random X.
yeah, definitely check out on
Yes.
BYU TV, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.